Will be very short, deals with the subject of the Inspector General's Act of 1978. When we passed that act, we required a president who wants to remove an IG to provide Congress specific reasons why that IG was removed. When Congress revised the IG Act 30 years later, we amended that notification requirement and made it even stronger. We require presidents to tell us their reasons and do it in no less than 30 days in advance of the removal. Neither of these provisions did anything to prevent the president from performing his constitutional responsibility to hire and fire people within the executive branch of government. Unfortunately, presidents from both political parties, let me emphasize, from both political parties, seem to have a hard time following this simple notice requirement. When President Obama fired IG Walpin of the Corporation of National and Community Service early in his term, he sent a vaguely worded letter saying only that he had, quote unquote, lost confidence in Mr. Walpin. When President Trump fired IGs Linick and Atkinson last year, he sent letters to Congress saying exactly the same thing. As I explained to both presidents when they sent those letters, merely telling Congress that you have lost confidence in an IG isn't enough explanation. The loss of confidence occurs only after something happens. When announcing their decision to remove an IG in office, presidents need to tell us what that something is. They need to explain why they've lost confidence. Failing to do so misses the point of the notice requirement entirely. The notice requirement isn't about a president's confidence in the IG, it's about the public's confidence in the Inspector General system across the board. IGs are put in office to serve as government watchdogs. If IGs are carrying out their duties as intended, they're likely going to make more enemies than friends. They may uncover things that make the sitting president and his political appointees very uncomfortable. So what? No president is going to like every investigation that an IG undertakes or every report that an IG prepares. But IGs should not be fired just for doing their jobs or to prevent them from releasing findings that may be embarrassing to some administration, Republican or Democrat. Requiring the president to explain in advance why he or she is removing an IG gives Congress time to evaluate those reasons. It helps assure Congress and the public that the termination isn't based on politics, but on real problems with the IG's ability to carry out their job. Of course, there has been no shortage of bad IGs who are deserving of removal. In fact, I probably had something to do with removing 5 or 6 of them in the years I've been in the United States Senate. And maybe some of these that ought to be removed are still even in office. Recently, I called on this President Biden, to remove the Federal Housing Finance Agency IG due to an independent report by the Council of Inspector Generals on Integrity and Efficiency that verified longstanding claims to my office that she abused her authority. Whistleblowers originally came to my office in 2015 with concerning reports that the IG was personally and publicly demeaning their employees. She referred to them with demeaning names such as Weasel. The IG also allowed her deputy to threaten employees who blew the whistle to my office. That was over 5 years ago. And can you believe it? The abuse is still happening today. Based on my investigations and CG's findings, I firmly believe the IG needs to go. But I don't get to make that decision. Only the president can make that decision. He gets to decide when to exercise his constitutional authority. He has a right to do so and will ultimately be accountable to the people for a decision that he makes. All he has to do, all that is required for him to do under this law, is to give Congress proper notice. That's how things should work. That's how things were designed to work. But unfortunately, that's not what's been happening. It's clear to me that we have to be even clearer than when we say we want reasons, we actually mean it. When making the decision to remove an IG, presidents must send substantive, specific reasons to Congress in advance, explaining the actions that they're taking and why they're taking those actions. That's why I introduced S-587, the Securing Inspector General Independence Act. In addition to making the notice requirement even more clear, my bill would limit who can be an IG as an acting capacity and require CG to provide guidance for annual whistleblower training for all IG employees. My co-sponsors and I have an interest in keeping our IG system strong and neutral, and that's what this bill does. I encourage all of my colleagues to support it and ask that the Homeland Security Committee give it full consideration.